This is Dennis Rader, age 61, retired compliance officer for the city of Park City, Kansas, president of his local church congregation, Boy Scout leader, husband of 33 years, father of 2. On February 25, 2005, Dennis Rader was arrested outside his church. He was charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder. The murders had occurred between 1974 and 1991. 31 years had passed. His neighbors described him as strict but fair. His congregation described him as dedicated. His family described him as a provider. No one described him as...
Dennis Rader did not wait to be named by investigators. He named himself. In a letter sent to a local television station in 1974, he signed with 3 letters: BTK. Bind, torture, kill. He was not describing a crime that had already happened. He was describing a methodology, a process, a system he had constructed and intended to continue. The name was not boastful. It was a clinical description of what he did.
January 15, 1974, Wichita, Kansas. Joseph Otero, his wife Julie, and 2 of their children, Joey, aged 9, and Josephine, aged 11, were found dead in their home. Rader had entered through a back door. He had cut the phone lines first. He had been watching the family. He had planned the entry. He had selected the victims. This was not impulsive. This was not rage. The Otero family was chosen the way a predator chooses its ground. Methodically, patiently, without hesitation. In the basement of the house, investigators found evidence that Rader had spent time there after the killings. He was not fleeing. He was staying.
Between 1974 and 1977, Rader killed 6 more people: Catherine Bright, Shirley Vian, Nancy Fox. Each killing followed a recognizable structure: surveillance, entry, control, bind, torture, kill. Between killings, he returned to his job. He attended church. He coached youth activities. He went home for dinner. The cooling off period for BTK was not days. It was not weeks. Between his 3rd and 4th victims, there was a gap of 3 years. He was not inactive during those years. He was waiting.
Forensic psychologists who studied Dennis Rader after his arrest identified a psychological structure that is rare even among violent offenders. Compartmentalization. The ability to divide a life into completely sealed segments. Each one real. Each one consistent within its own walls. Each one entirely disconnected from the others. The man who stood at the pulpit on Sunday morning was not performing. He genuinely occupied that role. The man who stalked his victims was not performing. He genuinely occupied that role too.
These were not two masks worn by the same face. They were two faces that happened to share the same body.
In 1979, Dennis Rader killed his seventh victim. That same year, he was elected president of his church congregation, Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita. He held the position for years. He organized events. He counseled members. He was described by the pastor as one of the most committed members of the congregation. This is not the behavior of a man struggling with his crimes. This is not guilt finding expression in service. This is a man who experienced no conflict between who he was on Sunday and what he had done on Thursday. The compartments were sealed. Nothing leaked between them.
Between 1974 and 2005, Dennis Rader sent over a dozen communications to police and media. Letters, poems, drawings, packages containing evidence of his crimes. Investigators identified this behavior as a fundamental psychological need, not a tactical error, a compulsion. Rader required acknowledgement. He required his work to be recognized. The killings alone were not sufficient. The fantasy required an audience. He was not just a killer. He was a killer who needed to be. Between 1991 and 2004, Dennis Rader killed no one. 13 years of silence. Investigators had not caught him. They had not even identified him as a suspect. He had simply stopped. What causes a serial killer to stop? Research offers several explanations. Age and declining physical capacity, a change in life circumstances, reducing opportunity, the psychological need temporarily satisfied. In Rader's case, the most likely explanation is the simplest. He believed he had gotten away with it. And for 13 years, he had. In 2004, after 13 years of silence, BTK reactivated. He began sending communications again. New letters, new packages, new evidence. He wanted to be remembered. He wanted his case to remain open. He wanted the audience he had lost. In January 2005, Rader sent a floppy disk to a local television station. Before sending it, he contacted the station. He asked one question: can a floppy disk be traced? The station relayed the question to police. Police responded publicly: no, it cannot be traced. That was not true. Metadata recovered from the disk showed it had last been used on a computer at Christ Lutheran Church. The registered user was Dennis Rader. 31 years, 10 murders, dozens of communications, ended by a single question he should never have asked. On February 25, 2005, a police helicopter landed outside Christ Lutheran Church. Officers approached Dennis Rader as he left the building. He was handcuffed without resistance. At the police station, investigators presented their evidence: the floppy disk,
The metadata. The name. Rader did not deny it. He asked for a Diet Pepsi. And then he began to talk. What followed was one of the most detailed voluntary confessions in the history of American serial murder. He described each killing with precision, each step, each detail, each victim. Not with remorse, with pride.
What does the case of Dennis Rader tell us? First, that psychopathy does not require the absence of social function. Rader was employed, married, involved in his community. The disorder does not demand visible dysfunction. Second, that the need for recognition is itself a form of compulsion. He could not stop communicating, even when silence was protecting him. Even when he understood the risk. The need was stronger than the calculation. Third, that compartmentalization at this level is not a conscious strategy. It is a structural feature of the psychology. The walls between segments are not maintained by effort. They are simply there. Rader did not fight against his other self. He did not experience conflict between his roles. There was nothing to fight. Each version of Dennis Rader believed it was the only one.
Dennis Rader is currently serving 10 consecutive life sentences at El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas. He will never be released. But the question his case poses does not end with his arrest. How does a man stand at an altar and mean every word, and also be what he was? How does a mind build those walls and maintain them for 31 years? Forensic psychology does not have a complete answer. What it has is a pattern, a signature. The need for control, the need for recognition, the absolute absence of internal resistance, the construction of parallel realities that never touch. Rader's signature was not just what he did to his victims. It was the life he built around it. That is what made him invisible. And that is what made him findable.
Every criminal leaves a signature. Let's read the next one.